the subjects we talked about might have been a little bit different, but a lot of parts of our conversation could have been exactly something that you would say on the air.
In other words, what you see is what you hear.
Yes, and maybe it goes the other way around. Maybe it's that when I hear you on the radio, it sounds exactly like what you would sound like talking to someone on your back deck.
It is true. I don't really change form very, very often. So you wrote about rap music. You were a music critic for the NYT. You now write profiles. I know you told me that you were coming out west when you interviewed me to interview a boxer. Did you ever get that profile done?
I talked to the boxer, and I found out that the day after I talked to him, this is an up-and-coming guy, not someone that people would have heard of, but the day after I talked to him, I discovered that the very next day, he got arrested. I believe he was on parole or probation and got arrested on some sort of weapons charge. I don't know if he's been sentenced yet, but basically that story is on hold.
Kay, who else have you profiled for the New Yorker?
The last big one that they printed before this one was the comedian Cat Williams, as an African-American comedian, who's one of those guys who's hugely popular, but again, the readers of the New Yorker might not have necessarily known who he was.
You did that one?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's a guy who sold out Carnegie Hall and Radio City Music Hall, but kind of in sort of an underground way. And I was a fan of him, and so yeah.
Wow, maybe I should do Carnegie Hall. You could introduce me.
You could drive on in the little mini car.
Oh, the clown car. No, I drive. I once did a live performance driving on in my '65 Cadillac. Everyone loved that one. That 65 Caddy, it represents America at another time. Thick glass when the chrome was thick and the women were straight was my opening line. It went over very well with my audience.
Looked a little bit like a Shriners Parade.
Okay, we won't go there. What would you like your follow-up to this profile of Michael Savage to be? Meaning, I don't mean of me, but I mean, who's next?
Who's next? That's a good question, and I'd like to think that maybe there's some people out there that would read my profile of you and think, oh, maybe I'll talk to this guy. Maybe he'll be fair. I always know. I can only imagine that if someone ever came to me wanting to do an article about me, I'd be extremely skittish, no matter who they were from. And so
absolutely. But remember what I said to you toward the end of the evening after we went for Chinese food, and you said you wouldn't write about that part of it, and you didn't? You were true to your word. Remember what I said to you in the foggy night off Geary Boulevard? I said, Kay, I looked up at you because you're a tall guy and I'm not, and I said to you, we're different in age by probably 30, 40 years. I don't know how many years. And I said, if we were kids in grade school, would we be friends? Remember I asked you that?
Uh-huh.
And what I said was, I would be your friend. And I don't know what you said. Did you say yes?
I said I thought that was pretty likely.
Oh, you're very, very, very cautious, aren't you?
I can imagine if that were the case. I can imagine some long, all-night discussions about all manner of things.
Where did you grow up, Kay? Where did you grow up? Here in the U.S., obviously?
I lived the first years of my life in Africa and then in Scotland, but I mainly grew up here in the Northeast, in Boston and Connecticut.
Now, am I allowed to say how distinguished your parents are? Would you mind if I mentioned it, or could you tell the people who your parents are?
I think it's all on Wikipedia anyway.
Okay, so I was very impressed. And you could say it better than I can, because I think it reflects upon the son that they produced in the sense of your balance. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, as most children of parents can attest, my main goal is not to bring shame upon them. But
wow. Well, yeah, but not every child thinks that way anymore. So obviously they instilled a sense of responsibility in you, which is is something we share together. Your father is a professor, and so is your mother. Isn't that correct?
My mother's actually a senior lecturer officially, but yeah, they're both at Yale University and teach fields related to Africa.
Amazing in that if someone were to look at your pedigree and someone were to say this man would never do a fair write-up on Michael Savage, he would skewer him, and they'd probably be right 90% of the time. Why did you? No, I got to ask the question another way. When you set out to write this, did you set out with a bias in mind?
Absolutely not. I think it's partly it's a few different things. One is that I don't think I'm not sure that skewering is what I'm best at, and certainly so I wouldn't have set out that way. But to be honest, I don't think I or anyone else would have been interested if this was just going to be a profile that just says, "Oh, this guy Michael Savage, he's a terrible guy." I don't think the editors would have even signed off on me wanting to do that.
Well, that's what you had written me. You wrote me such an email, and I actually believed you. And one of the reasons I was relieved when I read the article Monday is because I took a gamble on humanity, and it paid off. In other words, I had my faith in the journalistic element of humanity was reaffirmed. Okay, that's the absolute truth. I said, here it comes again, after what I've just been through with the 3 months of being a tar brush, so to speak, by the British government for quota reasons. I said, that's all I need now is another body blow. I was very pleased. I mean, it wasn't like you were my PR man. There's a lot in it that people could say is negative, but I don't see it as negative. I mean, when you said I'm still weird on the webcast, I was very honored.
I think so, and I imagine that your faith in mainstream journalism has been restored, probably briefly, I would guess.
Oh yeah, I know what's coming tomorrow. Now, here's a weird question for you. Talking about weird, the color drawing, the painting, the watercolor of me. Who in the heck did this? Because the person isn't credited here.
I think it's, wait, let me look. I've got a copy of the magazine here.
I mean, it's not bad. They did catch my eyes. They really did. I trust the eye. But where'd they get that mouth, that, like, prissy mouth? That's not my mouth. I don't even know what picture they got it from.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what they were using as the photo reference. I think
it's pretty amazing because it's somebody got a picture of me that I don't even know is on the internet.
Philip Burke is the artist, and I don't, as you can imagine, all these things are so separate. I don't know anything about it.
Well, it's not a bad watercolor. Hey, I remember when I was a kid, there was a restaurant in New York that had all these famous New Yorker profile cartoons up on the wall. What was the name of that restaurant? Do you happen to know? I
can't remember. You're talking about the one that had the all the Al Hirschfeld drawings and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. That's the New Yorker, right?
Some of it, but the restaurant, I don't know. I'll never quite remember.
But is there such a place left in New York anymore, Kay?
Am I allowed in? If there is, I'm not.
Oh, well, if you're not allowed in, I'm not going in either, or let's vice versa. If I'm not allowed in, I hope you won't either. But it's a very interesting question because I'm fascinated right now with the series on TV called Mad Men, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
All right, so I got season 1, season 2. Last night I watched season 1. I couldn't stop watching it because it's quintessential Manhattan, 1959, 1960, with all of the incredible bars, the interior shots of that kind of bar where the men all wore suits, the women were all dressed to the nines, the hair was done, the nails were done, the guys had perfect hair. I mean, does that New York still exist?
Did it ever, really?
I don't know. And didn't exist for me. Because I can't stand wearing a suit and tie.
Although, like many things on TV and in the news recently, it does make me thirsty just thinking about it.
Thirsty. I know where you're going with that one. Well, when you go back to the New Yorker, do people at all say anything to you, such as, why did you pick him, or why didn't you do a hatchet job on him? No one would dare say that to you, would they? It's
a very polite office, so you don't get negative feedback anyways. But I've gotten probably more positive feedback from this than from the other pieces I've written. I think people were. I think part of what people liked about it is that you were talking about it on the air, and it felt like a conversation between these two institutions that wouldn't normally be expected to have a conversation.